for any of you who just saw the smile flash across my face, it's because we have the game ready. We will be going up any second now. If we switch the screen, we are going to have the picks and bans screen coming up in a second. What are some of the bans that you would expect? Because Shyvana, she has been preferred by the EU teams. There is Irelia is one of those strong bruisers and one of Wicked's best champions. Rise, also just one of those strong bruiser mid kind of champions. What would you expect coming into this match?
An Irelia ban, which we just saw. I would have said that anyways, because it's really hard to deal with Irelia up top. You'd have to either like put a really hard counter pick, which doesn't really exist, and then at the end of the day it's Irelia. She doesn't like win games unless she's fed. Right.
Well, there are a couple of champions that do pretty well against Irelia, but the issue I think is that it forces you into a certain kind of team comp. Yes. So like Yorick, he does pretty well against Irelia. I've actually heard Wicked. I spoke with him and he said that he thought that Yorick should just win hands down, basically.
Yorick can win, but it's actually because Yorick dominates early. And right. The thing is, Irelia can never come back from that in lane unless she gets some help. But if Irelia never gets gibbed early from health and she keeps her health, she can always sustain herself with her passive. So Yorick's actually not that great of a counter pick to Irelia because once she starts rolling, she can sustain through that.
Yeah, and that is the thing, is that, she does have the great early sustain, and then once she hits level 6, it's almost impossible to force her out of lane. But we do have the bans. They are Irelia, Maokai, and Alistar, and then Morgana, Galio, and Rammus. So taking out some of that AoE, a lot of those kind of taunt snowball champions that could help yourself out early. Maokai definitely great in control jungle. Should be interesting to see what kind of comps they're looking to go with. We do have Shyvana on Against All Authority, and then Gangplank and Corki on CLG. So I'm kind of curious with the Gangplank pick. I'm assuming you'll be running top, but if we'll see something like, we have seen a lot of Nunu as supports, particularly from the EU teams, buffing their DPS carry. So Gangplank and like a Nunu pick, and then if you function that around AoE, they did ban out Morgana and Galio, which would have seemed to go well with that comp. But do you have any thoughts? I guess that'd be kind of interesting to see.
I'm pretty sure CLG.eu knows AAA's strength, so these are probably target bans or some kind of, they don't want those champs to be picked against what they want to run. Mm-hmm. And I know AAA's bans are target bans. They know Irelia is Wicked's main, and they know Snoop's main 2 junglers are actually Maokai and Alistar, and that's why they're banned. And from the scrims I've seen, Snoop doesn't really play Gangplank, so I think he'll default to Nocturne, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, well, we do have, for Against All Authority, Ashe and Janna. And Janna, this is actually, we're playing on the live patch. We, for this matchup, because it's both EU teams, we want to facilitate the match as much as we can. And so we're running on live. Janna, in this patch, is, of course, one of the strongest bot lanes. However, she's paired with Ashe, who's obviously one of the weakest DPS carries in lane, going against Corki, who's really aggressive early in the game. So do you think that's going to be an issue that they're going to have to deal with? Corki, with the Soraka, is going to have basically infinite mana, to spam on Ashe all day. Is that, a primary concern?
It's a problem because Janna Ashe is a really strong lane. They actually synergize incredibly well, but Corki basically is a pretty big counter to Ashe in lane based on the fact that he has such large single target burst that doesn't miss. Ashe has a volley, so it's not going to hit Corki at all times. And then just Janna by default is countered by sustain also. Like Ashe and Janna are only going to deal physical damage in that lane, and Soraka's armor buff on Corki will basically mitigate all the damage they can do in a drawn-out exchange, and Corki will definitely come out on top on those exchanges if they play it correctly.
Regardless, it should be really interesting to see what Against All Authority is looking to run. I would expect some aggressive champions for their mid and top lane, because Ashe, as the game progresses, is one of the best initiators in the game. Ashe has the ultimate, which is just one of the best ultimates for a DPS carry, and we do have Karthus and Kennen. So if they can look to pick up some kills, pick someone off, that could be really aggressive. I would probably expect Corki to pick up a cleanse. Do you think that would be beneficial, or do you think he'll probably go for like a standard exhaust or ignite?
The thing, I've watched a lot of scrims lately. I've never seen an AD carry actually take cleanse out of my own teammate,
Oh, okay.
Double Lift. So I feel like they'll all default to either Ignite or a heal. But I could be wrong
Even
here.
against like the Ash arrow, if they're trying to pick people off.
Yeah, even against
Okay.
Asher. From what I've seen, most AD carries, regardless of whatever CC the enemy team's running, they still run cleanse. They still run heal. I mean, heal or ignite, simply because bottom lane nowadays is kind of like you're separate. You're like on a 2v2 island.
Right.
Because jungler, it's like on top of the map you have a 3v3 going on. On the bottom of the map you have a 2v2. So you don't really need cleanse for that 2v2. It's better to have heal or ignite most of the time, or
Okay.
exhaust.
And it is kind of interesting to see this match. A lot of the junglers that we've been seeing recently are a little bit slower at doing Dragon, so we have seen that Dragon pushed back, a couple of minutes in general play, but here we have Nocturne and Shyvana. Both of them can clear Dragon pretty easily, and Karthus on Against All Authority, who, can do a lot of damage. Corki as well can do a lot of damage, so there, it might be interesting to see whether or not those junglers tend more towards bottom lane. Like you said, they have been going top, but I feel like that's partially because of the Dragon being pushed back. Do you think that that's the case? They might focus on bottom lane now more for like an early Dragon, like around 8 minutes or something?
I wouldn't quite say the reason they've been top side mostly is because the Dragon, the Dragon control. It's mostly because people have been they've seen that buffs. Taking enemy buffs is actually pretty easy if they don't have a strong early game mid champion, or like a weaker jungle in skirmishes. So if they can take a free boost, they'll take it. And the thing about bottom lane is if you can either chunk the bottom lane really hard or kill one, that's a free Dragon also. So it's always just a decision you can have as a jungler. It's just usually going bottom is really, really hard, and actually getting off a successful game because everything's warded. But since they have Nocturne, it's easier to get in, but at the same time, they only have Corki to deal damage, and they have no other CC to follow up a Nocturne gank. So it's still going to be hard to get anything off bottom lane.
Okay, well, we do seem to have pretty aggressive lanes for CLG. Top lane, Kennen is... It's kind of interesting to me. I don't really see a lot of NA players playing Kennen top lane. He is one of the stronger top lanes, but most of the NA players, they seem to, kind of be stuck in the role of bruisers and not be that comfortable picking off those ranged counter champions. But Kennen against Gangplank, he does, have something of a lane harass advantage. How do you think that lane is going to stand out? Does Gangplank have enough sustain that he should be fine? Will he probably be going for like a cloth armor to try and prevent some of that damage with those 5 health pots and then build into like a Wriggles or something?
Early game, GP actually does very, very well against Kennen. He actually has the advantage on Kennen. It's just once Kennen has levels, then Kennen can start harassing GP, and GP has to start getting some sustain. But it's pretty much a farm lane. You can just level Scurvy on GP, and that's why he didn't take Ignite. He knows, Wicked knows that he's not going to be able to kill Kennen. If Kennen plays well, he's not going to die. And if Wicked plays well, he's not going to die either. So they're just going to end up farming. And that's what's supposed to happen up top lane.
And I guess that's true that, they do have Shyvana, which is a pretty weak ganking jungler. She can, chunk you some, which could give Kennen an early advantage. She did take the exhaust. So, that should be pretty interesting to see. Kind of hurts her counter jungling a little bit, not having that kind of escapability, but she's generally pretty safe. She's got great movement speed, so the exhaust will help her some with ganks. I guess the teleport, like you were saying, it's usually something where if you take teleport, you expect to lose the lane, but you're trading it off for that map control. But I guess if you are saying that Gangplank should be fine with his sustain against Kennen, then that teleport along with his ultimate should provide a huge advantage to CLG when it comes to controlling the map and early dragon fights, or whatever else they're trying to do.
Yeah, it's a big advantage, especially since GP himself has a global ulti that can also help at the map. He has teleport, which they can set a ward up bottom lane, like set up a play, like GP teleports in and Nocturne comes in, and that's definitely can be a successful game if Janna and Ashe are overextended, and that can lead to a free dragon early on.
Now, for bot lane, Corki and Soraka, I've seen that lane before with the changes to Soraka. Corki's just going to be spamming all day. That's going to be really aggressive. Janna and Ashe, they did take 2 heals, kind of in my mind expecting the pain that's going to be coming from that lane. But then Soraka Because Shyvana is more of a counter jungling kind of jungler, she does have that clairvoyance. It will allow them to be more aggressive in lane. Is that, you've said yourself, I think, that you prefer taking clairvoyance usually. No, that was Xpecial, actually, I was speaking to. But is that something that, how do you justify the clairvoyance versus like a heal or ignite? Do you definitely agree with that decision?
It's on Soraka, I think it's fine because generally in a Soraka lane, the Soraka's positioning, she's not going to be taking damage. So she's not going to walk up and her summoner heal. If she takes summoner heal, it's kind of pointless on Soraka. She already has enough heal and she's not going to be the one that's being targeted. She can take exhaust. And I feel like as a Soraka player, you don't even really need flash unless like it's a failsafe. So having CV is definitely a great choice because if you're losing and you're not in a position to take control of like Baron control, like you don't want to face check, you can just CV, and you can easily like make it safe so you can go ward afterwards. So having CV is definitely a good choice.
Of course, the flash will keep her, generally safe. We do have a very aggressive kind of initiating team from Against All Authority. If Ashe were to throw off the arrow, they do have the Karthus to follow it up, so that will allow her to kind of get out of there as opposed to just going down. But we are in the game, and they're moving over towards the blue potentially. Probably just going to control their own jungle, but do you think that they might look to engage early on here?
From what it looks like, CLG.eu is taking a defensive stance, and I don't think AAA wants to invade either. They're also just watching out for their own. It looks like Shyvana really wants to start race red. That's what it looks like. And I'm pretty sure CLG.eu is going to start normal blue path for Nocturne.
These lanes, I mean, once again, we said earlier that Shyvana is, I don't know, not the most aggressive ganking jungler, and most of these lanes should be pretty safe. But what do you think her primary goals are going to be this game? Is it just going to be, let me get some levels, try and counter jungle, gangplank some, or are there any of these lanes that you think she might try and focus down?
Well, Shyvana generally is a horrible bottom lane ganker, so if anything, she can harass Wicked in lane. But other than that, she can focus on some, if she does the jungle correctly, she can counter jungle Nocturne, but Nocturne is actually a pretty fast jungler. And if you find Nocturne in the jungle with an Anivia mid, it's kind of dangerous too. So I feel like Shyvana's best bet will just to power through her own jungle. And if there's anything available on the map, she can go and try to take it.
CLG is kind of poking up here. They're not really going to do anything, but just preventing Shyvana from taking those wraiths before she gets the red. So they do know she's coming down and taking this red. Good ward coverage early on. The Karthus is kind of vulnerable in lane. He knows that Nocturne is going to be very aggressive, so they just want Karthus to be able to farm since he doesn't have a lot of survivability, generally speaking. And I don't know if they saw that Nocturne was getting the red first or just kind of assumed it. But Kennen will be a little bit vulnerable before getting the Lightning Rush, but otherwise is generally one of the safest laning champions in the game.
Yeah, definitely. Once Kennen gets Lightning Rush, Kennen doesn't usually Lightning Rush offensively unless it's safe. So even if Nocturne ganks, you can just Lightning Rush away to safety.
But is that something that, Wicked will try and be baiting out the Lightning Rush as the game progresses, maybe put himself in a little, dangerous situation to allow Nocturne that initiation opportunity since he, Nocturne doesn't really have to be worried about being countered out by wards?
It's definitely possible post-6, but I feel like pre-6, if you bait yourself too early, you might die because he has Ignite. So you might want to... It's possible, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Okay. And Shyvana taking the blue buff here. She will be level 3 with it and going to be coming up top. Probably going to be able to chunk Gangplank a little bit there. Maybe put him a little bit behind in lane. He is starting off with boots and 3 health pots, so he'll generally be pretty safe there, but he is actually coming up in this lane. I don't know, do you think we might see anything here? We do have Kennen actually coming in, getting a stun off, so nothing from Shyvana, but I don't know. With the tower pushing, you expect that Gangplank is probably just going to be farming through this early game?
Yeah, definitely Gangplank let the lane push early, and just generally by being melee, it's really hard to push against range because you're going to be taking a lot of harass in the first place, so the lane's going to naturally push the Gangplank side. And that's what Gangplank wants, because he wants Kennen to overextend and get scared that Nocturne will come gank. And if that happens, Gangplank can just free farm at the turret.
Well, we do have Nocturne coming up here, but Kennen is already recalling. He probably won't be able to get him. There's the CV hitting the Q. Oh, just barely getting it off. Not going to get that off. That probably could have really helped Gangplank in lane, but Kennen will come up, probably getting wards. There he has a ward.
Yeah.
So
what GP did earlier is he let the lane push, and then he started out. He's controlling the creep wave right now, and now he has the creep wave where he wants it, right next to his turret, so he can farm without being in danger of being ganked. But Kennen, on the other hand, Kennen had to go home. He's going to miss some experience. And he had to buy a ward. So he's down gold right now, and he's down EXP. So Wicked has the early lead right now.
we do see pretty even lanes throughout, though. You know, at what point do you probably think it's kind of the turnover where Corki and Soraka will probably be more aggressive? Is it like about level 5 or probably to level 6 when he can start poking down with those rockets?
It really depends how the early game goes. If they play really well, if Corki plays really well and Janet doesn't shield properly, then Corki can start winning the lane early. But generally around level 6, at level 6, Corki is going to have a big advantage over Ashe.
We do have the fear going off onto Moma. Froggen not going to be able to get in that Flash Frost, so Karthus is going to be fine here. Should recall most likely, though I guess it will push back a little bit. Froggen could potentially freeze the lane there for a short period of time, though. In this Karthus versus Nivea match, I know this is primarily going to be a farming lane, but you know, how will Karthus deal with the fact that he's got the aggressive ganking jungler of Nocturne and then, you know, the burst damage and stuns of Anivia? Is it mostly just going to be, you know, this defensive play that we're seeing here?
Well, I know Karthus doesn't want to have the creep wave where it's at right now because he's overextended right now, and this usually only happens pre-6 because once Karthus hits 6 and Anivia hits 6 and Anivia has that wall going on, and Anivia is going to have blue buff also. She's going to be auto-pushing the lane, and Karthus is going to be clearing the wave. So it's just both creep waves are just going to be cleared, and they're going to stay away from the center of the lane. So it's going to be pretty hard to gank both of them. But yes, Karthus doesn't want to overextend right now.
We actually did have Linak coming up here to steal those wraiths, but they did see him with the ward, and we do have the teleport coming in from Gangplank. There goes the fear onto Linak. No. He is going to be able to get out of there, but a little bit scary for a second.
Yeah, that's... Froggen missed her Q right there, and they also didn't... he's kind of low on mana, so it's really hard to follow up that gank, especially without any CC after the fear was used.
But that's one of the things that you need to do. I mean, you know, Anivia should be generally pretty safe in lane with the wall and with the Flash Frost, but this ward here is primarily, you know, for a counter jungling ward, you know, correct?
Yeah, it's both for counter jungling and in possible case of gank, because actually Karthus' follow-up gank mid is really dangerous. If you get caught in the wall and you're out of position, Karthus can flash exhaust you, and then you're basically dead because you're so slow that you'll get hit by every single Q, especially if the jungler comes with double exhaust. But yes, I think it's primarily a counter jungling ward.
Looking at the lanes so far, they all seem pretty even. Gangplank a little bit behind, but he's got the creeps pushing to the tower, so that's just natural. Corki versus Ashe is actually dead even. Ashe at a slight advantage so far, which is kind of surprising to me. And then Anivia and, you know, Karthus also pretty even. But Ashe, you know, if she can farm through that early game, you know, can just be a terror late game. Is this just kind of what we're going to see, that Corki isn't going to, you know, be able to stop her from farming that much? Or, you know, is it really just kind of developing once Corki gets a couple of levels?
Generally, the early game for Janet Ashe, they actually are stronger than Corki Soraka because Corki doesn't have as much sustain. His sustain with the Soraka lane, Soraka's doesn't offer as much sustain that's needed to counteract the damage that Ashe and Janet have early game.
We do have Against All Authority coming in to steal this blue buff. They recognize how strong it is for Anivia to have that, but it is a 4v3, so they'll definitely want to be defensive here. They do have the pink ward, so they, you know, can potentially steal it. Karthus is coming in. We do have a 4v4 potential here, and Ashe is level 6, so she does have the arrow. They will want to make sure that none of them are getting caught out of position, though I don't know that Against All Authority really has the follow-up damage at this point, particularly against the Soraka.
Yeah, it's kind of... Karthus has a lot of damage. If the fight goes wrong, Karthus can definitely clean up if he's not focused. And also Ashe is level 6, which is really dangerous. But I feel like they're not in a position to contest this.
Linak is going to try and steal it, and he does smite steal it over the wall with that ward there. So, you know, excellent presence of mind there. I guess, I mean, that's really what they were trying to set up. I guess not really trying to engage a fight, but just get them kind of distracted enough for them to steal that blue. And that will hurt Froggen a lot in this mid lane, since Anivia is one of the most mana-hungry jugglers in the game.
Yeah, definitely. Right there, the dragon at the blue fight, I felt like AAA's positioning wasn't the best. So even if they did engage, they'd be at a pretty big disadvantage. But what ended up happening was Shyvana was just like, I'm just gonna try to steal this because I know either Nocturne smites it or Anivia, because Nocturne is trying to give it to Anivia, and if Nocturne doesn't smite to secure it, then Shyvana definitely will steal it because Smite's going to outdamage the E-Burst from Anivia.
And we do have Karthus picking up the blue. Again, generally pretty even lanes, but coming into this mid-game, how do you expect that team fights will primarily go? I mean, I understand Karthus and Kennen, their AoE damage, the disables, that could take, you know, CLG out of the fights really quickly, but at the same time, they do have excellent range damage, they do have good kiting capabilities, and then some good disables with Anivia and Nocturne. So is it really just who kind of initiates the fight is primarily going to be in the best position, or is there, you know, something else we should be looking for?
I actually think AAA has an advantage in team fights here because they do have the best initiate right now with the Ashe arrow, but also they have a counter disengage, which would be counter engage with the Kennen ulti, because actually CLG is not running any exhausts right now. So if a fight goes wrong, and say Karthus is usually always kind of being aggressive with walls and trying to get Qs off, and let's say Karthus gets caught and everyone focuses Karthus, that's like Kennen's perfect cue to just jump in and start AoEing everyone, and there's no answer. You have to kill Kennen immediately, and I don't think that's possible without Kennen, before Kennen does her damage. So that's definitely something to watch out for in these team fights.
We do have Linek coming down bottom here. He does have Wriggles, so you know there is that potential for the dragon. We did have a nice little engage here on Froggen, but he's going to be okay. But everyone is grouped 4 against all authority, so they are looking to take this early dragon. And like you said, you know, with the AoE that Karthus and Kennen have, and then the initiation, we actually have Gangplank teleporting in, and there's Nocturne coming in. He stole the dragon with the ultimate, but he's going to go down quickly. We have the Ashe Arrow. He flashes out of there. Kennen following it up with his ultimate, and Snoopé just barely going down. Soraka was split, so that's going to be 2 kills so far. We do have the Karthus ultimate, so these guys are not looking good underneath this tower. They're actually not going to dive it. I feel like they're high enough health that they probably could. Kennen just going to poke some, not allow them to recall.
That's a dead
Corki. There's Corki.
That was a really good steal by Nocturne, but I felt like they should not have even tried to contest the dragon, because what happened, I think we missed it. What happened, because Kennen came down, and Kennen actually forced Anivia to flash. Anivia's flash is down, and Anivia got chunked right before the dragon fight. So Kennen's goal was to come down, chunk Anivia, and get a dragon, because they're at a disadvantage. But CLG.eu, knowing that they were at a disadvantage, they still chose to group up for dragon instead of letting Nocturne just run in and suicide steal it. Like, Nocturne did surprise us all. He stole the dragon, which is very good for CLG.eu, but they ended losing 3 champions in the process, which I feel is actually, and a tower. So they actually came out way behind right there. Yeah,
I was kind of surprised to see the Gangplank ultimate coming in, considering that he was just jumping into all this AoE damage. You know, the Ashe initiation. If Anivia had been there, you know, it might have been a good situation for him where they could just steal it and then wall off and say, hey, you know, that's our disengage. We're just going to reset the fight now. So that'll be kind of interesting later to see whether her wall really takes precedent over Kennen's initiation and Karthus's. You know, whether she can prevent the engage after Ashe has that, you know, gets off the arrow onto someone. Do you think that'll probably be the case?
It's a possibility with Shyvana, because I feel like if AAA engages poorly, definitely Shyvana's gonna dragon form in. Oh my!
Oh, there's the arrow on Froggen, and Snoopé is slowed as well. Linak is going to be tanking this tower. Janna actually coming and taking it, and the flash ultimate from Janna. They're going to be able to pick up Snoopé. Yellow does go down, but Froggen's going to go down as well. Corki going to try and pick up a couple of kills, but isn't going to be able to do it. So 2-for-1 exchange. I'm surprised that Yellow went down. He probably, you know, could have kited a little bit more, stayed out of it since they already had the AoE damage up front.
Yeah, that's true. It's just one of those situations where you really, really want to like get that champion down, and that's what I felt like happened. But they did come out ahead, so it's not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really great arrow by Ash.
Yeah, that's something that CLG is going to have to watch out for when you're coming down these, narrow jungle paths. It really just sets up kind of an easy initiation for Against All Authority.
Yeah, I feel like the Ash arrow is going to be a big problem in this game, especially since the only person that can get arrowed safely on CLG's team is pretty much Gangplank. I'm sorry, Gangplank, because he's going to build tanky and he's going to stand at the front. But Nocturne generally actually stands like in the middle of the line, or even not in the lane, because he usually wants to ult in. So the only person that can tank the arrow is going to be Gangplank. So that's going to make them play really scared.
Oh, wow, there's the wall off on Linak, and then Snoopy, he's going to be coming in. He's going to get the fear, but he's going down quickly to Soaz, and there's the Karthus ultimate, and Ignite will probably pick up the kill. He is going to go down. And now Against All Authority will be able to control this blue once again. We did see, there's the arrow. Anivia able to pick up a kill, but they're chasing him down. Soraka does go down. There's the Kennen ultimate. Corki barely going to get out of there. But yeah, I don't know. I guess they even exchange support for support, but CLG's once again losing their blue buff, even when they warded it to make sure it wasn't going to be stolen again.
Yeah, I feel like that was Snoopy's fault right there, because Froggen's wall actually didn't do anything. So it kind of baited Snoopy into ulting, and that's what caused that to happen. It ended up in 4v3, I think. Or maybe even, something like that, and they just ended up taking the blue, especially with Ash's follow-up arrow.
Yeah, and so Anivia, will generally build a lot of mana, but I guess in this case, forced into, a heavy mana build, won't have that significant damage through the mid-game, compared with the massive AoE damage that Against All Authority has. So I guess primarily looking to stall, for those late game fights where they have lots of control in the fights. I don't know. Do you think that, CLG has the significant advantage late game, or is it really going to come down to these mid-game fights and whether or not Against All Authority can just continue pressuring with the 4K lead that they have and the aggressive team fight they have?
It's really going to come up to how well All Authority keeps their lead right now, because they're up 4K gold right now, but the thing is they have Ash Arrow, which already has been basically winning them the game alone, this Ash Arrow, and also Kennen ulti. Both are things you have to watch out for all game long, not just early, not mid, but also late game. Like those skills are valuable throughout the entire game, and it never drops off. And then you also have Karthus, which is one of the strongest late game like hyper AP carries.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're Anivia and you're blue starved throughout the entire game, regardless, no matter what happens, your late game is gonna be really bad compared to Karthus, because Karthus is so much more ahead. So.
And it's funny, Ash was always kind of the most undervalued DPS champion. Even when she was played a lot, there was kind of like a point where you really needed to pick Ash every single game. She was just so strong with her ultimate. And here we see again, it used to be extremely easy to harass her down in lane. She does have the good level 1 burst. We do have Wicked coming up here, but he doesn't recognize the enemies here, and they're actually kind of split now. If we do have an engage, there it goes. We do have the slow from Janna, and Linak's going to come in, but they are going to back off, concerned about getting caught with that Anivia wall. But they did force the Gangplank ultimate out, which is, one of their stronger initiating capabilities. This will be a free dragon, or should be for Against All Authority. And then the Ash Arrow Wicked will cleanse it, so they will all probably back off now.
Yeah, that was another free dragon for aAa, and it was 100% a free dragon, because this is the thing I was talking about AAA, like it depends how they're going to lose their advantage, but also depends how CLG.eu reacts, because right now AAA is in such a big team fight advantage that they want CLG.eu to fight them, because they're going to definitely win. And by forcing dragons and forcing CLG.eu to group, they're getting denied creep. They can't come back, and they're also losing dragon. So the CLG should have responded by not even coming to dragon. They should have just stayed in lane and just pushed towers. Push towers, because there's no way you're going to beat them in a dragon fight.
Now, Ash's ultimate, really does just win games. As I was saying a second ago, she did you know, she did used to be pretty easy to harass down in lane. Do you think that, I don't know, if the bottom lanes aren't as aggressive with harass now, what with like the nerfs to Sona, if you can get that aggressive support like Janna, do you think we might see a resurgence to Ashe here?
Definitely, because Ashe has always been a strong pick, but in recent times, people have been picking these AD carries that are very strong bursts, and they don't rely on the support. Like Ashe has always needed a support to synergize with her in lanes. Like she always needed a Sona, she needed an Ashe. But then supports like Graves and Corki, they don't really need these half aggressive supports. They can actually just have Soraka and they can win the lane themselves. Ashe with Soraka isn't that strong. That's why I feel like people just started straying away from Ashe because they saw like, wow, Graves is manhandling Ashe in lane.
Yeah.
Corki is manhandling Ashe in lane. Maybe she's just not as strong as she used to be. But the thing is, they just forgot how to play her properly in the bottom lane. As you can see now, like AAA is up against Soraka, Corki, and Ashe is out farming Corki significantly.
Right. And you know, Corki does have the good AoE damage in fights, but when you have great single target damage like Ashe has, you have the kiting capabilities with the volley, and then the engage. Gangplank, you know, was split pushing. He is going to teleport up here. You know, it's interesting. CLG's actually doing an okay job of stalling here. I know Against All Authority is really just waiting until they have the potential to force an engagement like Baron a little bit more easily. They are pinging this blue, so they will once again try and steal it from Anivia. She's going to try and get that before they can get up here. It's going to be close. But, I don't know, with Against All Authority's team, do you think that we'll probably start seeing them, you know, bluffing Baron a little bit soon? They do have the damage from Karthus, and then Shyvana should be able to tank it okay, though she actually doesn't have a lot of defensive items yet.
Yes, they actually have a very strong Baron control because Karthus can do so much single target DPS that Baron will actually die incredibly fast, especially with Shyvana with Wriggles also. So Baron, controlling Baron or Baron buffs is definitely a big possibility. But I feel like they really want that top tower before they commit to controlling Baron.
Well, Anivia finally has her blue buff. To be able to kind of poke down the enemy team, that'll definitely help her out. She doesn't want to get caught with the arrow. She's probably the only person, I feel like, on CLG. I mean, all of them, clearly, except for Gangplank, would be hurt by the arrow. But as long as Anivia is not hit, she does have the wall to kind of force the disengage and just nullify that arrow to a degree. So I guess that would really be the key target for Ashe at this point.
Yeah, definitely. Even if Anivia gets hit in the backline, like, Kennen will flash in, because no one is going to be able to stop Kennen from killing her.
We do see CLG kind of positioning around this you know, jungle. They do recognize that Against All Authority is going to kind of alternate back and forth between mid and top lane generally, to try and keep them off guard, you know, continue pushing down these towers. And we actually do see them. I'm not sure if they're coming up to top lane or just going to clear, see if there's any wards in here and try and begin to bait the Baron, but they are actually starting on this Baron. Linux actually taking a lot of damage here. You know, like we said, he doesn't have a lot of survivability items, and if they get low, it could give CLG the potential for a comeback, but they don't know that it's going down. There's the free Baron for Against All Authority.
Baron. Yeah, that was greatly played by AAA because they know they had no wards. They cleared out the Baron wards, and then they kept 3 mid. And this is actually really smart. They started Baron with 2 people, and there's no way they could have 2-manned it. But they tried, after chunking Baron to around 60%, Janna came, and then the team swung. And by that time, CLG's CV did come out, but it was too late. Had all 5 of them went on Baron, CLG would have immediately knew that they were making a Baron play. But since they went there 2 by 2, they could not respond in time.
And so not only does Against All Authority have the huge gold advantage, they have the Baron buff, but then if you look at the items for CLG.eu, we don't see a lot of damage. We don't see a lot of survivability. I mean, they are kind of building tanky. Anivia does have the Rod of Ages, but Anivia will have a little bit of burst, but not, you know, great sustained damage. Nocturne and Gangplank aren't to that, you know, late game carry potential. Corki doesn't really have a whole. I mean, Corki's innate damage, but doesn't really have a lot as far as items are concerned. So, in these team fights, you know, how do you think CLG is going to fare, or do they just not have enough items currently?
They are definitely incredibly behind at this point, but the only way for CLG.eu to come out ahead in this team fight is to have Karthus. I don't think it'll happen, but if Karthus dies without doing much in the team fight, which is possible if Karthus decides to flash in and go Rambo, and then Kennen doesn't kill 1 or 2 squishies, then CLG.eu can definitely win a team fight.
Oh, we do have the wall off onto yellow. He tried to flash away, but he's taking a lot of hits from the tower.
Yeah.
CLG isn't able to initiate. That could have hurt, but I guess at the same time, if they all engage onto Ash, then Kennen and Karthus would just absolutely destroy them.
Yeah, that was actually one of the best chances to initiate at that point, because Ash actually got walled, and then from what I saw, she flashed
failed
forward.
the flash.
She didn't. It's like she moved forward, and then I was like, really?
They are kind of poking down, trying to see if they can just poke down this tower. Here, Linax coming in. They are going to finish it, and there's the arrow. And then Gangplank flashed over Nocturne, so Nocturne is going to have to flash away. Everyone from CLG pretty low. They did get a nice little chunk off of Momo, but otherwise everyone's doing pretty well on Against All Authority, and they can just kind of continue pushing. Ash's arrow is a pretty short cooldown, and otherwise we didn't really use any abilities except for Gangplank's ultimate.
Yeah, that was really good for AAA.
Froggen almost getting hit with that whirlwind. Ash just gonna poke down the tower a little bit. Pretty slow here. CLG, they do have pretty good clearing job of clearing the waves. They do have Corki can clear the waves very easily. So can Anivia. Anivia will have mana issues, but with the new changes to Soraka, do you think that's even a concern now for whether or not she has blue buff, or can the Rod of Aegis and then Soraka just sustain her enough?
It's definitely a problem in team fights because Anivia has to be Anivia will be using a lot of mana, and
we do have the wall and then the stun onto yellow, and Nocturne comes in, blowing up yellow there, and he's actually almost going to go down. We have the Karthus and Kennen ultimate is going to be able to pick up that kill, and Corki as well, but not as bad as it could have gone for CLG, but Against All Authority still in a serious advantage position here.
The thing is, Ash is kind of a mid-late to late game carry, and right now it's only a mid-game. Like Karthus, Kennen is really farmed right now, and it's really high level. Karthus is both Kennen and Karthus are basically putting like 75% of the team's damage right now. So even if Ash dies, if you expend that much HP killing Ash, like the AP carriers are definitely going to clean you up, and that's just what happened right there, especially with the Baron buff still active.
Which is why I guess Ash can be so aggressive going forward. I mean, you would kind of look at it and you're like, oh, Ash is getting caught, but she's kind of allowing herself to get caught with the understanding that her team's going to clear up. We do have the missed Ash arrow, but Soaz is going to come up here, and he actually does have a Realize, so he's going to be able to get a lot of damage onto Wicked. Wicked should be able to get out of there. He does throw off the ultimate. He still has his cleanse up, so he will be able to retreat to his tower. Now, Anivia did finish off the Archangel's staff. It does build pretty nicely from the tier, but do you generally like that as an AP champion, or I don't know, usually want to switch to like a Rabadon's to just really fulfill, get out your damage?
It really depends. Obviously, not every champion benefits from having a larger mana pool. Anivia is one of the few champions that do, but having Archangels early is actually pretty good value for your money because you pay like 1,000 gold to finish off the recipe, and usually you get around 80 AP, I feel. That's just like a generalization. And at a point like this where you need all the AP you can get because you're in a losing situation, I feel like finishing the recipe wasn't a bad idea.
And I guess for not a lot of gold, since Anivia probably would have been just too much to work into that Rabadon's. But we do have a Frozen Mallet onto Gangplank now. Nocturne is working on an Aegis, though it would be a pretty late Aegis. He's actually pushing down bottom, so they are going to exchange towers here, but he's got to get back because we do have a 4v5 in this top lane. They can kind of stall, though. Shyvana definitely not tanky enough to tank those towers, which would be the just absolute tipping point for CLG. And actually, he's going to walk up onto Shyvana here. He's going to get caught. There's the Ash arrow. There's the Ash arrow. It's going to hit. We actually have Froggen flashing over the wall. So able to stall while Nocturne picks up a second tower.
That was actually really good for CLG.eu because they traded turrets, and whenever you're behind and you trade something, you actually come out ahead because you never would have gotten that if you contested anything.
We do have the slow from Momo, though. The team's not fully grouped, waiting for Kennen. Kennen does have Frozen Azonias now to go along with the slow. So a flash ultimate from Kennen could probably just, I don't know, obliterate CLG. But I guess we'll have to see. They do have great control from Anivia in those team fights, and then the ability to just continue stalling this game for a while.
Yeah, it's just the initiates that AAA has right now. It's you can't really deal with them. No team can really deal with it because Ash's arrow can come out at any time, and also Karthus's wall. If you land the wall correctly, Kennen can just go in because they have nothing can stop Kennen from flashing into the middle of your team. And if everyone's slowed, you're gonna get caught.
Well, Baron should be spawning in about 20 seconds, so we will probably see this game kind of decided by this next Baron fight. There it goes. CLG definitely in position, doesn't want to allow that free Baron like last time.
Like, a situation like this is where CV really comes in handy because we know AAA doesn't have CV and they actually just lost Baron control. They do have a ward up at rates, but that's all the vision they have of Baron right now, and Baron just respawned.
And we actually have an arrow going off. It is going to hit Froggen. Linak is going to throw her back into Kennen, and we're going to have the flash ultimate. No, he's just going to come in. There it goes. And MoMA, very close to going down, will go down, but the damage is done. They're going to be chasing him down. There's the ultimate from Janna to keep her team alive, but everyone for CLG is low, and Soraka, because she was trying... wow, excuse me. Because she was trying to counter out those wards, we have the air conditioning at like 50 degrees in here. Because she was trying to counter out those wards, was split from her team. So against All Authority, we'll be able to take this inhibitor. They could potentially, I guess they don't probably have enough time to push down the Nexus, and Corki will be able to clear the waves, but they will be able to take Baron if they like, or if they decide to recall, they will have Baron to force another fight. I guess they're just going to go and take it right now.
That's definitely going to be a free Baron for AAA unless Nocturne manages to steal it. Oh man,
we need a heater in here. I'm telling Alex, he's sitting across the table from me.
Wow, they're actually choosing not to do Baron without Karthus. Oh my!
I mean, the benefit is that they will have the means of engaging later, and actually Snoopy trying to get that red buff, expecting them to do Baron, and will be chased down by Ashe very quickly. But I was going to say, leaving the Baron up because they know that they have this just ridiculous AoE team and one of force fights, rather than sitting at these towers where CLG is just able to stall, they can just continue to force these team fights. Now that Karthus is kind of in range, they will go for this Baron, and there's not really anything that CLG.eu can do to stop it. Honestly, I'm pretty surprised. I mean, against All Authority, one of those top teams, the Ashe arrow just barely missing Froggen there, but will be a free Baron. Against All Authority, of course, one of those top teams, did finish second at DreamHack, I believe. Has played very well so far. They went 2-1 against Goose this past weekend, but the Game 3 that we watched was pretty dominant from against All Authority. But at the same time, CLG.eu, from what I've seen of them, I don't know, they look to me like one of the strongest teams in the world, and they are one of the strongest teams in the world, but I expected them to take this whole tournament, so kind of interesting to see this Game 1.
Yeah, I just feel like Shyvana was definitely the factor in this game. Because Snoop is not as comfortable on Nocturne as he is with Maokai and Alistar, and they just, I hate to say it, but the game kind of snowballed from having those blue buffs taken away from Anivia, and that just held the control of the game, and they lost a big advantage when AAA sneaked that Ninja Baron. That's the biggest turning point.
Yeah, and I mean, CLG, they do have a pretty strong team. We actually have Ashe going to throw off some damage on the Snoopy there. CLG, they do have a pretty strong team comp, but at the same time, against All Authority, just kind of, it seems, counter-picked them. And we do have Froggen getting some good damage onto Janna there. But the Ashe arrow, wow, Wicked going down very quickly. I think he might go down. Wow. But I was going to say, Ashe hasn't been expected to be seen in play, and yet Ashe has been dominant all game. Karthus and Kennen, that AoE combination, just has won him all these fights, and then Shyvana in the jungle has counter-jungled. So all around, all of their picks have worked out for them as a team.
Yeah, I really like AAA's team comp because they don't really have a front line, but they kind of don't need it because they have three really, really big threats. And you have a wall, you have arrow, you have permanent slow, and you have Janna for disengage, and
they have
Kennen.
4 people for disengage.
Yeah, there's so many things you can do with that team comp. You can initiate, You can clean up fights with Karthus ulti. You have global presence. You have AoE. You also have initiate.
Yeah.
And disengage. You have a little bit of everything.
Well, Against All Authority is going to be pushing into this third lane, and now, even though CLG can generally stall, it's not going to matter anymore. They can tank these towers some, and with the top 2 inhibitors down, it's basically a foregone conclusion. I'm not, even now, if CLG got the miracle fight and were able to pick off one of Against All Authority, they probably could just win a 4v5 after that with how strong they are. It's kind of close, but I don't know.
Even if CLG.eu aces them for free right now, they're still going to be very behind.
And there's the Ashe arrow onto Yellow Peak. Kennen will flash in. She will be able to pick up a couple of kills. Corki goes down very quickly. There's Soraka as well. And Snoopy out of position is going to be taking some damage from Yellow there. There's the Karthus ultimate. And this will be GG. Linak still chasing after Wicked on this tower. Will go down. Hey, they got the kill on Shyvana. But we do have the surrender vote from CLG. So congratulations to Against All Authority taking game number 1. I don't know, strong play, I guess. I'm really excited to see Ashen play again. She always was one of my favorite DPS carries with that ultimate. Like we said earlier, it can just win you games. But what do you think CLG might be looking to do a little bit differently coming into this game number 2? Is it, do you think they might ban out a champion like Kennen, who's really strong in lane control but gives them the team fight presence, and maybe look for a more aggressive bot lane that can harass Ashe down a little bit better? Though I was kind of surprised to see Ashe was really comfortable in that bottom lane, and like you said, out-farmed Corki.
Yeah, I think part of that has to do with the fact that Corki, it is a pretty even lane. Jan and Ashe can play. If they play it well, they can do well. It's not a given that like Corki, Soraka will smash Jan and Ashe. It's just most the game played out that way is because Shyvana had such a big presence. Like she warded the blue, and CLG.eu didn't have it warded, and they have the map control. They don't know it's warded, and they just managed to ninja steal that blue, and that kind of snowballed the game. And it's just Shyvana's jungle control was a big factor in that game. So banning Shyvana could be one of the things CLG.eu can do, and also that team comp that they just ran, they had Karthus, they had Ashe, but had they not had Kennen, their team comp, I can't really explain it.
Would have kind of fallen apart.
Their team comp falls apart without Kennen.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem. Like Kennen does something
no
top laner can do. No top laner can do what Kennen can provide to your team. He's a safe laner and also has probably among the biggest presence in a team fight with the ultimate. So that's definitely ban-worthy.
And even without having the teleport, since Gangplank had the teleport advantage, Kennen does have good enough mobility. He can push up the lane very quickly with just clear the creep wave and then move down to bottom. We saw him leaving top lane and moving bottom a lot for the dragon control for those fights over blue buff.
Yeah, definitely. Especially since Kennen doesn't have too many losing matchups. Like even if Kennen is in a losing matchup, Kennen should be able to farm. Like at all points, Kennen's not going to be out of the game. And when you have a game-changing ultimate like that against a team like CLG.eu who basically always only has 2 damage dealers, their AD carry and their AP carry, because Wicked generally doesn't play high damage bruisers unless he plays Riven. So if you only have 2 threats and you're running a comp like with Ashe who can take care of one, very easily she can take care of one. And when you're left with 1 threat, you just lose a team fight. And that's a pretty viable strategy to do against someone with 2 threats on the team. You can prepare for that.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us in Game 1. Make sure to get all your friends watching because we will be running all day. We will be coming back shortly with CLG.eu versus Against All Authority for game number 2. Against All Authority taking game number 1. Once again, I am the Red Baron at BaronCast. With me is Chowster, and we will be back after this commercial.